facts of life. Promoted to show the kids at school for you never ever been cool enough to offbeat for the lesson. Fashionable for the powdered waist and fluffy outfit for the ladies without asses to kid yourself every time you disdain the show. Colorful people with the feeling of the soul for the soul to the market the cultures is sacred. Scared to peer in the dough for the knowing for the tourists and such. Find the satisfaction for the naive familiar kind. Caved after the winds you emerge when they tell that story for the late bloomers in the lake scene. Angry with the foreheads outstretched with the eyeballs and caveman commercials rain. True to the ancestors like to pretend you don't know to share the old. Native tongue for the more to the kin to the monkeys and the kings. Like black men kissed by the sun, favored ones that we endure will. When you be blazed up by the smoke and the shine, still until the price has been paid for you, left in the remains of the earth, ruin the decay brought to you by you for you. This is true. In search for the better place, the race is set or face. We have that for the media, you can have to find a timeline. This is more than you. Displaced to replace, perfecting instead of perfection. Objective for the course, a reactive to response. All those streaming to the straight. You find habitual thinking around about repetition and knots. Make sense of the what they define ability to liable to tell the truth of the frame of memory and infuse it can be confused, infusing the spontaneous reaction of heat. You have those sentiments for the nose to sense the brain for the braille to scale the weight, freshly to frame the weight for the compromise. It was the venture for the you to know the incentive for the events of the course to find and control for which is in and out of control for the divine presence and presence with the predominantly dominated phenomenon movements. Commissions growing pains and sprouts let out for the crowd. Proportions instead of disorder color for the offering initiation, never for the never minded for the metal slow beats and punishment for the enslaved justice and forging forgiveness. Cricket or picket signs. Combined for the companies to compare paragraphs. Parallels are sparely spoken about, poked with the provocative pronouns, and scribbled with the described to be distracting disaster, disassembling the cognitive thinking for the provoke for the evidence and revealing. Relevance for the disengagement of the intercourse, and pride for the detriment for the fatality for the fatally attributable for the outcomes that coming out of the cause of the set the brain opening for the position that encompasses every time the hand struck an out. Meaning outcries and outlasts of the outcast. Departure apart from the apparatus derated to reaching the residence, resigning the responsibilities for the requiring reform for retaining rhetoric for the revenue for the reaction of aggressing, being glued to the regiment for the realignment for the engagement in the murmurs and projected regimen from the line of age. Reactance to action, activate events such like for the forest of trees, like blands of fire stick to eliminate the celebratory for the cases enchanted to disparity. Conclusions and consider for the this to be offensive for the course and cordially complain for the complaints to be complacency for the completely complimenting for the complex and content for the controversy to contrive for the contribute for the tributes and find the violence way to the warning parties. Party parcelling for the celebrate for the deliberate and deliberates and define the liberal. Who's that individual there?
Make me whole again. I wanna be whole. Make me whole again. I want the whole thing. The whole experience.
Make me whole again.
Make me whole again. I wanna be whole. Make me whole again. I want the whole thing, the whole experience. Is it or is it not okay? Make fun of yourself, you know you well. We all do anyway, with the smell of mayonnaise, the flavor for the raising of the skin, for you have most of the fire and history, you kill that for the recorded by the flunked it in the text to show your threat to humanity. Praise for other people, for richness and soul, for the view, for the obvious lack of this is how your soul has growth, and so with the seeds of those who love you, for the only dispute with the thin and the destruction to consume. Jealousy and the smallness of the heart, for the mama warned us about that for the talk. Love of the unlovable, no matter for the how hard you find the lucky for your natural instincts and trump yours, so we all love, but we still learn. Unlearn the rules you were taught, because that made life fair for you and all the smiles and the tremble and temper, the tantrums and available at any given moment for the inconvenience to discuss where your priorities get mixed up into the frenzy for the reptilian for the tendencies and against all odds, and you find emerge and still stronger. You knew it would happen, and that could find at least the delay for the payday for the payback for the rest of the days until the ways change and attitudes bow to presence of vibrations higher than yours and yet attainable for the giving up of the sense and told us it existed and then the sun for the feeling in the hotter than you start to getting used to. Your kind knows all about adaptation. For the ignore the truth to find the perish in the flames because you ain't got the skin. For the global warming, for the promoter to sold the kids in school. For you never been too cool for them off the beat, off for the lesson, the fashion, but for the white powder wigs and floofy outfits, ladies. Without asses, and you find the kids itself every time for the disdain, for the show, the colorful people, without the feeling of the soul, for the soul to the market of the cultures and sacred as it appears. And knowing tours and searching for satisfaction, naive you. It would be liable for you to tell the truth. It would be liable for you to tell the truth. Pretty reliable of you. And diabolical for you for the be that alive and survived. For the arrogant array for the errands. Color of crayons and battle good for the eons. Irony of iron of a need to kneel to. Yesterday's gestures, unless you're best invested for the destroying you. Dilate heart to be considered for the amputated, for the alleviate the pain. Dehydrated, baptized, and raptured with no limits, and captured still the rising of the morn. For these to be the yesterday's gesture, find the future like. Scared for sacred, the sacred for the that to be Jennifer pronounced and pronounced unidentifiable. You have that special acts. The releasing of this is what you can never appreciate. And when all failed me to standards to sit at the stillest, to await the awakening for the deprivation that have arrived, the death declared upon the presence of the light, for the depth upon the darkness to be illuminated, for the shining upon us, for the summer rise, the summer nights, and under the moon glow to find those directions in the nocturnal conditions. Seek compensation for the new day with the gratitude, coordinating with the movement for the significant other in the way. The world has to be able to overlook the underlying truth and foundation of life, and no sequel to the game for the sequence of defining the patterns in turmoil. And that truth lies in the middle. Perception of has vowels, and that would explain sometimes why it's hard to comprehend for who's to compromise the empty promise and full of remorse, and they can't find a way for the beginning like shadows and easy to look over the logic of the sweat, produced and thought modified to sleep to the amnesty for the peripheral eyes to see the unbelievable, the prey into ideology, the parallel form of your paradox and line of propaganda for the proportionally pray before you pray, but eyes open with the closed mind, find a bliss and execution for the feeling of the beneath that heathen peace beneath the surface of the common ground for a familiar bloodlines and tied for the wrist, loosely ever the resistance and the destitution for the ending of the ancestry of belly top for the own and had an instant witness in the mirror for the passing path message you walk past that pasture. The passion's a place for the plastic garbage patches to fill holes in the ozone. Rather but not you hit alone for the disability ozone. Passing supplements. Scriptures a living word for the haiku syllables. Feeling the paraplegic pain. Settle for the unsure to raise your hand to the fist. Tight righteousness. Acts of reactions are righteous. White better to topic. Tender topic for the trouble that waters. The strapless life jacket to culture the factor for the blood that warms the heart. Ignite that truth. Authentic enough for the scriptures of the living word. Not talked about for the ears. Description of interpersonal race relationships of the interpretation for the scriptures and living word for the haiku for the syllables. And this is be the Jew, the feeling for the paralytic and the unsettled. Unsure to raise a hand for the fist type for righteousness. Acts and act reactions of righteousness. Fight to that for this to be the one. For the numbers for the four to get. Not to forgive them for what they do. Or for what for that to be the curse word for the being tongue-tied to like the words misled for the heart to piece of paper mache for the balloon. Criminal waiting to win for the present. The criminal love the breaches to take a flight for the counting number for the time that you can answer that master. Eventually it was the calling to know the purpose and proposal that for the proposition that propel yourself to the over the gravitational pull. Zip codes and capacities and tries the families and oxen soul to reconnect it with the reincarnated I find at this vital times.
It would be liable for you to tell the truth. Pretty reliable of you. And diabolical for you for the be alive and survived. For the arrogant array of the errands. Color of crayons and battle good for the eons. Irony of iron of a need to kneel to. Yesterday's gestures, unless you're best invested for the destroying you. Dilated heart to be considered for the amputated, for the alleviate the pain. Dehydrated, baptized, and raptured with no limits, and captured still the rising of the morn, for these to be the yesterday's gesture, find the future like. Scared for sacred, the sacred for the that to be, the Jennifer pronounced and pronounced unidentifiable. You have that special act, and the releasing of this is what you can never appreciate. And when all failed me to standards to sit at the stillest, to await the awakening for the deprivation that have arrived, the death declared upon the presence of the light, for the depth upon the darkness to be illuminated, for the shining upon us, for the summer rise, the summer nights, and under the moon glow to find those directions in the nocturnal conditions. Seek compensation for the new day with the gratitude, coordinating with the movement for the significant other in the way. The world has to be able to overlook the underlying truth and the foundation of life, and no sequel to the game for the sequence of defining the patterns in turmoil. And that truth lies in the middle. Perception has the vowels, and that will explain sometimes why it's hard to comprehend for who's to compromise, the empty promise and full of remorse, so they can't find a way for the picking the light shadows, and easy to look over the logic and the sweat, produced and thought modified, to the sleep to the amnesty, for the peripheral eyes, and to see the unbelievable, the praying to ideology in the parallel form of your paradox in line of propaganda for the proportionally pray before you pray, with eyes open for the closed mind, find the bliss and execution, for the feeling of the beneath that heat and peace, and beneath of the surface of the common ground, for unfamiliar bloodlines and tied for the wrist, loosely over the resistance to the destitution, for the ending up of the ancestral belly, tough for the owner and had an inch to witness in the mirror for the passing message. You walk past that pasture. A pasture in place for the plastic garbage patches to fill holes in your ozone. And whether or not you hit alone for the distributed ozone. Passing supplements, scriptures a living word for the haiku syllables. Feeling the paraplegic pain, settle for the unsure to the raise your hand to the fist. Tight righteousness, acts of reactions of rights, swipe under the topic. Tender topic for the trouble, the waters and strapless life jackets to culture the factor for the blood that warms the heart. Ignite that truth. Authentic enough for the scriptures of the living word. Not talked about for the ears. Description of interpersonal race relationships, of the interpretation for the scriptures of the living word, for the haiku for the syllables, and this is to be the feeling for the paralytic and the unsettled. Unsure to raise a hand for the fist type for righteousness, acts and act reactions of rights, and swipe through that for this to be the one, for the numbers for the four to get, not to forgive them for what they do. Or for what for that to be the curse word, for the being tongue-tied to lack of words misled, for the heart to piece of paper mache for the balloon. Criminal waiting to win for the present, the criminal love the breaches to take a flight for the counting number for the time that you can answer that matter. Eventually it was the calling to know the purpose and proposal that for the proposition that propel yourself to the over the gravitational pull, zip codes and capacities, and tries the families and oxen soul to reconnect it with the reincarnated. And I find it this vital times.
me.